Greetings viewers, Jordan JT Trainer here with an interesting new video to share. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Winnie the Pooh, the willy-nilly silly old bear who's a chubby little cuddly all stuffed with fluff and a childhood delight to those who grew up in the 1960s to early 2000s. Or at least that's Disney's version of the character. What if I told you there was a version of Winnie the Pooh that's a feral and bloodthirsty serial killer? Yeah, I wouldn't believe that either, but sadly I did not make that up. For those who aren't in the loop, here's a little backstory about Winnie the Pooh. The character was created in 1926 as part of a titular children's book series by English author A. A. Milne and English illustrator E. H. Shepard, and based on a stuffed toy from the former's childhood. In 1961, Disney received the exclusive rights to the Winnie the Pooh stories, characters, and trademarks. The company would go on to create one of the most popular and successful animated franchises of all time, with Pooh Bear himself becoming a beloved Disney character among the younger and older audiences. Then on July 1st, 2022, as it had been 95 years since the first Winnie the Pooh book came out, Disney could no longer hold the exclusive rights to the series and put it in the public domain. That means people are now free to do whatever they want with Winnie the Pooh without getting into legal trouble. Well, okay, they can't use Disney's version of Winnie the Pooh because they still own the copyright for that. So as long as people don't use things such as Pooh's trademark red t-shirt and the character's trademark voices, then they're free to do what they want with the series without any legal consequences. And shortly after Winnie the Pooh entered the public domain, a British filmmaker named Rhys Frake-Waterfield took the opportunity to create a low-budget indie horror flick titled Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. Yes, this is unfortunately real. Not an April Fool's joke or even a Halloween prank, but an actual movie. You can probably guess that the moment this movie was announced, people in the Winnie the Pooh community were not happy about it. Now, I'm an easygoing guy with low maintenance, meaning I'm usually able to tolerate and deal with many things, no matter how bad they are. Like I was able to tolerate crappy films like the Emoji Movie despite their mediocrity. But even someone like me has limits. And when I heard a horror movie based off Winnie the Pooh was in the works, that was one of the rare occasions where I decided to draw the line. I mean, if something like this was going to be some crazy YouTube video, an episode of South Park, or even a sketch on Robot Chicken, it would have been more acceptable and forgiven, because that stuff is usually known for parodies and satire. Else something like this would be more forgiven if it was an episode of The Angry Video Game Nerd. But an actual full-length movie? No. Just no. Honestly, I really don't understand why a lot of filmmakers and movie studios these days like to take a piece of children's media and put them in the horror genre, regardless of whether they're fitting for it or not. It's like these people enjoy ruining childhoods by creating the most messed up fanfiction ever and putting them on the screen instead of leaving them on paper where they belong. It's things like these that almost make you feel ashamed to be an aspiring filmmaker. Almost. Okay, I initially promised myself that I would never actually watch Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey and instead just watch people do review videos of it. Unfortunately, I've never been great at keeping promises. One day I discovered the movie was on the streaming service Peacock, and out of both high curiosity and sheer boredom, I decided to watch it. As expected, Blood and Honey was terrible, and not just because it features a beloved childhood icon as a serial killer. No, there were other problems with this movie, even for a low-budget one. A nonsensical plot, questionable writing, bland acting, uninteresting and forgettable characters, lazy editing and cinematography, cheap special effects, and poor set designs. The only redeeming qualities I saw in here were that a couple of kills such as this one moment where Pooh jabs a machete through a young woman's mouth were pretty creative, and the animated sequence at the beginning that explains how Pooh and friends became feral isn't so bad. But other than that, this isn't the enjoyable type of bad movie that I would watch a second time. Yet despite its poor reception, Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey was successful in the box office, grossing over $7 million worldwide on a budget of $100,000. I'm pretty sure most of the people who actually went to see this piece of crap in theaters were only there to hate watch it, which really isn't a smart thing to do, because giving products a certain amount of attention is what keeps them going, regardless of reception. Not so surprisingly, because it managed to make quite a profit, Blood and Honey got a sequel, initially announced shortly before the first premiere, and to prepare myself for this video, I reluctantly decided to watch the sequel on Peacock once it was there as well. I hate to admit, like really hate to admit, but while still not very good, Blood and Honey 2 showed itself to be an improvement over the first, most likely because both its budget was 5 times bigger and Ray's allowed someone named Mad Leslie to write instead of himself. I say the latter was a good call since the first Blood and Honey showed that Rhys sucks more at writing than directing. Anyway, as much as I hate to admit, Blood and Honey 2 wasn't that bad. Not necessarily good, but not terrible like the first movie. For good qualities, most of the new characters are more interesting and somewhat memorable. The acting is more passable, particularly with the guy playing Christopher Robin. Pooh is a bit more empathetic than in the first movie. Al and Tigger are entertaining antagonists. The killers are cooler and bloodier. The editing and cinematographer are more decent. The set designs are less cheap, and the special effects are better, as Pooh and Co. look like actual monsters instead of obvious human beings wearing rubber masks. Also, I admit this part in the film's climax made me smirk. Oh, bother. That is oddly satisfying. For bad qualities, the plot still doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially when it explores more of Pooh's backstory. The writing is mostly subpar with some weird dialogue and plot points that don't really go anywhere. And Pooh doesn't get much focus until the second half because Al is more of the movie's main antagonist than the titular bear himself, which is only a tad disappointing, but whatever. Also, Blood and Honey 2 feels more like a reboot than a sequel, as it shows virtually no connection to the first movie and only features it as a film within a film. Yeah, we're apparently expected to believe the first Blood and Honey was intentionally bad to pass it off as a poorly made reenactment of Christopher Robin's story of the 100-Acre Wood Massacre. Even if someone is all for meta-commentary, I find that kind of dumb. But at least it explains why Piglet was still alive and none of the actors from the first movie reprised their roles here. Overall, while I can't necessarily say that I like this one, Blood and Honey 2 is more of an enjoyable bad movie than its predecessor. And just like the first, Blood and Honey 2 managed to make a profit, grossing over $7 million worldwide against a $500,000 budget. You know, it seems like the people who saw the sequel in theaters are the same ones who saw the first movie in theaters and were hoping to equally tear this one apart. I wouldn't be surprised if the exact same people decided to go see the third Blood and Honey movie set to premiere in 2026. Yep, a third movie is in the works with an even higher budget, and said to feature Rabbit this time. I'm not really looking forward to that one, but as long as Matt Leslie or someone who isn't raised does the writing, I'm sure Blood and Honey 3 will at least be decent enough to sit through like the second one was. Before I continue the main subject of this video, I want to rant about a franchise Rhys is creating called the Twisted Childhood Universe. Not only is Rhys going to continue with his Winnie the Pooh horror series, but he's also making horror movies based on other public domain Disney characters such as Bambi, Peter Pan, Pinocchio, Sleeping Beauty, and Snow White. In fact, the Peter Pan and Bambi horror movies are already set to premiere in 2025. And if that weren't bad enough, Rhys has confirmed that he also plans to make horror movies based on copyrighted characters such as Powerpuff Girls, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and even the frickin' Teletubbies. Actually, the latter characters would make sense for a horror movie because they're already creepy as is, but that's not the point. Okay, I'm going to loosen my rant a little because I don't want my negativity to get the better of me. But to make a long story short, I highly dislike Rhys Frake-Waterfield. I can tolerate him being a crappy filmmaker, but not someone with a disease of imagination who is clearly unashamed of what he's doing. However, as much as I dislike this man, I would never wish death upon him or anyone, because I'm smart and sane enough to know that's wrong and makes you seem no better than them. Instead, I'm just going to boo Rhys whenever I see his face, and I recommend others do the same.
Boo this man!
Now, you might think that being a fan of Winnie the Pooh, I would be against any type of horror movie based on the iconic bear. Well, yes and no. Even though the take on the genre has become overused at this point, I actually don't have a problem with there being a Winnie the Pooh horror film in general, so long as it shows some faithfulness to its source material and is executed well, which both Rhys versions mostly failed at doing. But believe it or not, I happen to know of a Winnie the Pooh horror film that, while still features the titular bear as the antagonist, is actually good and shows better respect to the source material. A few years ago, I found this YouTube channel called ACM Official, run by an aspiring filmmaker named Alex Magaña, who creates high-quality short horror films. I've watched some of his works, and most of them are actually pretty good and creative, with one of my personal favorites being The Mime. Well, about a month after the first Blood and Honey premiered, Alex released his own Winnie the Pooh horror film, and needless to say, it is way better than Ray's version, and for many reasons, namely that its premise makes more sense and Pooh is rightfully portrayed as a stuffed teddy bear instead of a tall humanoid bear. Alex's Winnie the Pooh horror film is basically a tame version of the original Child's Play, as it features a young Christopher Robin claiming that his Winnie the Pooh bear is alive after being blamed from his mother for eating their honey. Ms. Robin doesn't believe this until she hears another voice in her son's room, and we get a frightening cliffhanger ending.
I've got a rumbly in my tumbly, Miss Robin.
Even though this film is only 3 minutes long, it has enough quality to make it more enjoyable than the Blood and Honey movies, mostly the first. In fact, I don't know if this was intentional or not on Alex's part, but you could say that his version of a Winnie the Pooh horror film sort of mocks Ray's version in a way, and I am happy about that. Bottom line, while many people and I don't agree with Winnie the Pooh being put in this genre in general, if you're going to make a horror movie based off a beloved childhood icon like him, at least do it properly. Alex Magaña certainly wins in that department. As for Rhys Frake-Waterfield, I won't wish death upon the guy like most of the Winnie the Pooh community has, but I do hope he gets haunted by the ghosts of A.A. Milne and the creators of other classic beloved characters that he plans to ruin. Okay, that's pretty much all I got to share for this video, so thanks for watching and I'll see y'all around.